12 forgotten gruesome 90s monsters explained. They deserve rediscovery. Everyone remembers the 1990s as a golden age for fashion and sitcoms, but what most of them forget is what a great time it was for the horror genre as well. While shows like Sex and the City were dominating the small screen, fans of horror were busy renting films like Scream, The Sixth Sense, and The Blair Witch Project. The decade gave us icons like Hannibal Lecter and Ghostface, and new spins on classic franchises like Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween. Today we will be counting down our top pick of monsters from the 90s that did not fail to make their mark, some quite literally.
Before we go into our list, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click from you, but it means a lot to us. Thank you. Let's begin.
Octalus, Deep Rising, 1998. The film Deep Rising is directed by Stephen Sommers and stars Famke Janssen, Treat Williams and Kevin J. O'Connor. It tells the story of Argonautica, a brand new ocean liner that is set out on its very first cruise. Apart from facing problems within as a thief tries to steal riches from her fellow passengers, Argonautica struggles with issues that arise from the depths of the ocean as well. A murderous sea creature they name the Octalus attacks the ship with its huge tentacles while the travellers try their best to survive. The Octalus origins remain unknown throughout the story, but judging by its sharp teeth, tentacles and grotesque looking body, it can be assumed it's an ancient creature that rests within the depths of the sea. To prove how old the being is, some of the passengers even find multiple ships sunken exactly where the Argonautica was attacked. When only a few people remain on the vessel, they try their best to take down the beast, but it overpowers them, killing them one by one. The Octalus finally meets its demise when the Argonautica blows up, destroying it in the explosion. However, a loud noise similar to the creature's can be heard as the surviving passengers reach a nearby island, indicating that the Octalus was not the only one of its kind. The Octalus's body is too large to be shown whole in any of the frames of the film, but we do see each of its tentacles with mouths and spiky teeth on the end. They seem to have a mind of their own apart from being a part of the main body, as they can each track down their prey. The creature sucks out the bodily fluids of its victims and spits out the hollow skin shell, and although it mostly dwells deep inside the ocean, it seems to be an amphibian that can breathe outside air as well. A concept artist that tried to draw up the entirety of the Octalus shows that it looks similar to a giant octopus, except it's way deadlier and has too many teeth in too many parts of the body. Kothoga, The Relic, 1997. Directed by Peter Hyams, The Relic stars Penelope Ann Miller, Tom Sizemore and Linda Hunt. The film follows the story of the Kothoga, a museum creature that goes missing and starts attacking people as it stalks the building's corridors in the dead of night. As a detective and a biologist team up to find it, they must race against time in order to ensure the safety of the people from this demonic entity before it kills again. The film is based on the novel of the same name by Douglas Preston and Lincoln Child. The Kothoga has the ability to change its form into a hybrid of reptiles, fish, mammals and insects, and even walks among people as a human named John Whitney, who happened to be an anthropologist working at the museum. He turned into the Kothoga by drinking an ancient soup created by a South American tribesman that was also preserved at the institution. The tribesmen created that stew by using a fungus with mutagenic hormones in order to transform against enemies that may attack their land. The Kothoga is able to survive only if it feeds on the hypothalamus of humans and animals alike, or if it continues to consume the fungus that created it. In the ancient days, it served as the tribesmen's guardian angel, but once its purpose was fulfilled, they left it out to starve and die to prevent it from harming anybody else. The Kothoga that Whitney transformed into has a sloping back with crocodilian spikes and a dark brown mane on its back topped with a muscular tail. It has glowing eyes that are quite small compared to its head, along with exposed gums and spiky teeth similar to an anglerfish. It also has two pairs of tusks, one smaller than the other. Because of Whitney's background, it made him a more dangerous version of the Kothoga, who could not only hunt down its victims, but also avoid any traps set for him. Towards the end of the Relic, the Kothoga comes face to face with Margot, a girl who Whitney was in love with and that causes his human mind to resurface for just a brief moment. Margot uses this temporary weakness to blow up the lab the Kothoga was in, while she hides inside a maceration tank, finally killing Whitney in his Kothoga form. Giorgio, Castle Freak, 1995. Stuart Gordon directed Castle Freak, starring Barbara Crampton, Jeffrey Combs and Jonathan Fuller. The The film tells the story of a couple who arrive at a 12th century castle while visiting Italy with their blind daughter. As most haunted mansion stories go, they soon start to experience unexplained noises and occurrences around the castle, while their daughter complains of someone visiting her room every night while they sleep. Soon, to their horror, they discover a local prostitute and the housekeeper murdered brutally inside the fort. When the father sets out to discover the castle's secrets, he finds that they are not alone, as an abused child who is left to die in the basement now lives there as the castle freak, and is hell-bent on wreaking havoc on people's lives. Giorgio was beaten regularly, abused, and barely given scraps as a meal when he was hungry. All this was faced by him when he was a mere child, so one cannot help but feel sympathy for the freak. He did not choose evil, rather his circumstances are what made him evil. When Giorgio is not acting out of anger and resentment for the treatment he was given since childhood, he is acting based on the only things he has learnt in life: violence, neglect, and abuse. For many, the castle setting and Giorgio's grotesque appearance reminds them of the most famous creature that was victim to his circumstances and hence became a monster, Frankenstein's monster. Throughout the film, we see Giorgio and Rebecca forming a potential bond, as she does not respond with fear or horror on meeting him. But things do not go that way, as Rebecca's mother Susan is overprotective of her due to her disability. On discovering the truth about Giorgio, she responds exactly how he would hate, by being scared. This disfigured man, left alone for years, and known only to be negative and aggressive, ties up Rebecca. It's finally Rebecca's father John who comes in to do the job. As Giorgio and John fight on the roof of the castle, the father sacrifices himself to kill Giorgio in the process. The film ends with Susan crying and expressing her love for her husband, with John's family attending his funeral. Judas Breed, Mimic, 1997. Guillermo del Toro's film Mimic starred Mira Sorvino, Jeremy Northam and Josh Brolin. The film is a sci-fi horror which follows the spread of a cockroach plague that could potentially end the child population of New York. A species of Judas bugs is introduced to the environment by evolutionary scientist Susan Tyler in order to infiltrate the cockroaches' habitats. Her plan seems to work very well until she realises that the Judas bugs are continuing to evolve and are now starting to mimic and hunt down their next prey, which is the human species. The Judas breed was initially programmed to seek out the disease-spreading cockroaches and release an enzyme that would kill them. The scientists even made sure to program the species to die out once their work was done, but things clearly did not go as planned, and the Judas metamorphosized into something much more dangerous for the human race than the roaches it was aimed to decimate. This man-made insect breed was conceived in a way that could mimic the appearance of its prey, so that it may be able to blend in with them and find their hideouts. The same characteristic was retained by them when they began to view humans as their main source of sustenance, giving meaning to the film's title. The Judas appeared like a crossbreed between a praying mantis, a murder hornet, and a mosquito with large wings and 4 feet that could stab anyone in its way. They were humongous in stature, and although they tried their best to blend in with humans during the day by mimicking their appearance, they were not evolved enough to carry that out seamlessly. If one saw their faces closely, it was easy to tell that it was no normal person, and so to make up for the abilities that they had not yet achieved, they began to use the skin of their victims to create human face masks, much like the infamous serial killer Ed Gein. Mimic ends with Susan and her friends setting fire to a loose gas pipe, creating an explosion and killing all the Judas breed. And although one male Judas manages to escape, Susan is able to create a diversion enough for it to get crushed by an oncoming train. The audience is relieved that the species is eradicated, but given how the film spawned 2 sequels, we know that they found a way to survive. The Killer, Split Second, 1992. Split Second is an American-British science fiction horror that starred Kim Cattrall, Alistair Neil Duncan and Pete Postlethwaite. As the world is being consumed by global warming and other problems that humans face due to their own faults, the killer has emerged and goes on a continuous murder rampage, ripping out its victims' hearts and sometimes even torturing them more than it needs to. Policeman Harley Stone seems to have a personal bone to pick with the killer, as it had murdered his partner and even taken his widow as a hostage to torment Stone further. The killer is a 10-foot-tall humanoid creature that stands naked and has black slimy skin. It does not have any genitalia and its eyes glow red above its ever-smiling mouth. Many believe that it has come around so that the world may finally pay for its sins, and has a connection to the Chinese calendar, as it arrives every year of the rat. Once it begins to wreak havoc, it does not stop for up to 25 years, and given how no guns or weaponry is advanced enough to defeat it, mankind must only suffer until the time is up. The killer's personal grudge against Stone is more like a sadistic game for it, whereas for the latter, it is his one and only chance at redemption after not being able to save his partner's life. The creature puts its mark on Stone and a few others, enabling it to make them hear and see whatever it wants, from wherever it wants. Although it seems to target only those that have Scorpio in their zodiac, the killer does not shy away from ripping out hearts of those that cross its path. As for its abilities, it possesses superhuman strength and durability along with super speed, allowing it to smash through anything including walls. Not only is it physically powerful, but it also possesses high intelligence, making it extremely difficult to beat. It's later revealed that the reason the killer has all these powers and abilities is because for years it has continued to eat people's hearts, which makes it possible for it to absorb all their DNA. The film's ending is similar to that of Deep Rising, as we see Stone finally being able to free his dead partner's widow and rip the creature's heart out, killing it. However, as they leave the place behind, bubbles erupting in the water body nearby indicate that there may be more of them. Foster, Metamorphosis, the Alien Factor, 1990. Directed by Glenn Takakian, starring Tara Lee, Matt Calise and Diana Flaherty, Metamorphosis the Alien Factor is seen as an unofficial sequel to The Deadly Spawn. Both films were extremely low budget, and Metamorphosis is considered in the category of B-grade horror today. But despite that, it did not fail to give us a monster that had its own distinct charm to it. The film shows a government organisation running experiments on some alien DNA it has managed to get its hands on. The organisation is called Octalus, and aims to discover how many different kinds of mutations can be created out of the DNA. Much like the recent Marvel film Venom, the alien DNA has a mind of its own, and manages to set itself loose on the scientific compound, killing all in its path. It is then left up to the daughter of a security guard at Talos to emerge as the hero of the film. Foster is filled with gruesome scenes that may curb your appetite, and although it was made with a budget slightly higher than that of Deadly Spawn, the monster in this film did not live up to that of the latter. The creature here, Foster, is nothing but a huge pink mouse with teeth on it. It resembles the Graboids in Tremors very slightly, and looked perfect for that of a B-movie. Given how creature features were limited in the 90s because of the lack of CGI, the Foster does remind us of John Carpenter's The Thing, but given its stiff movements and low-budget cinematography, it has more of an 80s feel to it, and is a completely fun watch. Langolier, The Langoliers, 1995. The Langoliers was a TV miniseries from 1995 that was directed by Thomas Lee Holland and adapted from Stephen King's novel 4 Past Midnight. This novella was a collection that consisted of 4 stories, one of them titled The Langoliers. The story follows a group of 10 passengers who wake up on the red-eye flight that they have taken, only to find the rest of the plane's occupants missing, including the captain. Luckily, Pilot was among the 10 that remained and helped land the plane in an airport in Maine. On landing, they realise that the airport looks barren and abandoned, just like the plane was. One of these passengers, named Craig, suffers from PTSD due to childhood abuse and has a phobia of a creature called the Langolier, which hunts down the lazy and irresponsible. These Langoliers are furball creatures with 3 jaws and no legs. They feed on time that one has already left behind or lost out on, and the passengers of the plane come across them because they had accidentally crossed over into a time rift while they were asleep. Mysteriously, they are able to fly but have no wings to propel that flight. And even though they do not appear to have any brain, eyes or ears, they seem to navigate their surroundings easily and use senses as well as anyone. Craig's father used the Langolier as a myth similar to that of the boogeyman to stop his son from procrastinating or ever taking a break. But when Craig crossed over into the time rift with those other passengers, much to his horror, they turned out to be very real. Aliens, The Puppet Masters, 1994. 1994's science fiction film The Puppet Masters was directed by Stuart Orme and adapted from the book of the same name written by Robert A. Heinlein. The film starred Donald Sutherland, Eric Thorne and Keith David, and follows someone called the Old Man who runs a CIA branch as he goes on to investigate with a group of people a flying saucer that has landed on Earth. Much to their dismay, they realise that aliens with abilities of mind control have landed on Earth and attach themselves onto people's backs to bind with their nervous system and treat them like puppets. On further probing, the group realises that the aliens can be detached from one's back via electric shocks, and that they all share a collective conscience that rests in their UFO in the form of a hive.
No, Sam!
They soon resort to biological warfare after coming across a boy with a history of encephalitis, and his disease being the reason the aliens could not take control of him. The group breaks into the UFO and destroy the extraterrestrials, but one last remaining alien attaches itself to the old man. In an attempt to save mankind, he gets on a helicopter where his son blows him up along with the creature. The alien's appearance is similar to that of an electric rayfish, and it uses its tentacles to attach itself to the victim's nervous system through their spine. No other way to kill them, biological warfare proved the only viable solution to getting rid of them. Idle Hands, 1999. This dark comedy horror was directed by Rob Manflender and starred Devon Sawa, Seth Green, and Eldon Henson. The film's title is inspired from the famous saying that idle hands are the devil's plaything. The film tells the story of Anton Tobias, a young stoner with his two best friends and a girl next door he has a crush on. After his parents are mysteriously murdered on Halloween night, all clues seem to be pointing at Anton himself. Although Anton is confused at these accusations, he does not get much time to process as he soon kills his two best friends, Mick and Nub. Anton comes to the realization that his mind has a mind of its own and hence is possessed. Like extremely loyal friends, Mick and Nub decide that in death too they will help Anton to get rid of the possession, and hence get back inside their own bodies. In an attempt to help him, Mike and Nub help Anton cut off the hand, which in turn sends the idle hand on a killing rampage of its own. A high priestess who arrives in town looking for the evil hand informs Anton that the appendage will take Molly, his next door crush, back to hell with it. While they all try to stop and save Molly, the hand kills many people. In a comedic ending, we see Anton, Mick and Nub getting stoned to gain some strength before finally putting an end to the hand, and as Anton blows the smoke towards it, it loses control, dropping to its demise. In a freak accident, Anton is crushed by a car that his friends accidentally drop on him from above and decides to stay back on Earth to be with Molly. Mick and Nub get their happy ending too, as they are finally able to go up to heaven. Tommyknockers, The Tommyknockers, 1993. Another TV miniseries based on a Stephen King work, The Tommyknockers was directed by John Power and starred Mark Helgenberger and Jimmy Smits. When writer Bobby and her boyfriend Guard discover a stone object in the woods near their house, they investigate further and find that some cubes made of an unknown alloy are present in the forest and connected to one another. The more they discover of the object, the more townspeople start showing strange symptoms, such as insomnia, telepathy, or the ability to create advanced gadgets out of mere kitchen tools. Everyone in town starts getting very creative with what they are doing, except Guard. He believes the metal plate he got placed on his head years ago because of an accident is what is preventing him from gaining the abilities that others are. However, things soon go from weird to dangerous, and some of the folks start to go mad and rave about something called Tommyknockers. When the town's E.G. Marshal, Ev Hilly, digs deeper into the history, he finds some disturbing claims from the tribals that the land is cursed and many mass murders are taking place on it as well. As the film's storyline unfolds in layers, it seems more and more complicated, and soon Guard and Anderson realise that the town is atop a huge alien ship. When they dig deep enough to reach it, they find a little boy named Davy who had gone missing some time ago. The aliens, or the Tommyknockers, are draining the townspeople of their life force. Guard and Anderson drive the ship above the ground, and before the townspeople who are still under the alien influence can stop them, Guard drops off Davy and Anderson and flies higher above. The ship explodes in the sky, and in a tragic ending, we see Anderson looking up and being able to hear Guard recite some of his poetry. The Resurrected, 1991. Directed by Dan O'Bannon and starring John Terry, Jane Sibbett and Chris Sarandon, The Resurrected was adapted from H.P. Lovecraft's novel titled The Case of Charles Dexter Ward. The film sees Claire, who hires a private eye named John to look into her husband's recent bizarre behaviours, as he has moved into a farmhouse and isolated himself. This occurred soon after her husband Charles found out about his family history, and discovered the painting of someone named Joseph Curwen. Weirdly enough, Joseph bears an uncanny resemblance to Charles, and when John tries to question him about various shipments coming in, he acts evasive, only stating that he is on the edge of greatness. After admitting Charles to an asylum because of his growing insanity, the doctors claim that his metabolism is unnaturally high, and that they cannot find any reason behind his recent cravings for blood and raw meat. While Charles is in the hospital, Claire and John continue their investigation and discover that in the year 1771, Charles's great-grandfather Joseph was involved in acts of necromancy, while his wife cheated on him with someone named Ezra. Joseph's necromancy had to end abruptly after a flood hit the house and the townspeople attacked it, thinking they were malformed creatures living inside.
There'll be no salvation for thee.
When Claire and John visit the place themselves, they are attacked by these entities and barely survive after leaving behind a bomb to explode. And reaching the hospital, Claire informs John that she is pregnant, while he takes off to confront Charles at the asylum with a briefcase, as it is filled with human bones. It's then revealed that through various experiments that Joseph performed with the dead, he managed to survive for all these years, and Joseph confesses that he made Charles perform a ritual which allowed him to take his form, while Charles's bones lie in the briefcase. As John pours a magic potion decimating Charles's bones, they begin to reanimate, and him and Joseph get into a headlock before disappearing into the cosmos. One question remains unanswered. Whose baby is Claire pregnant with? Demons and the Collector, Demon Night, 1995. Directed by Ernest Dickerson, this film is the first feature presented on the HBO series Tales from the Crypt. This comedy horror stars Billy Zane, William Sadler and Jada Pinkett Smith, and starts off full of action as we see a drifter named Frank Breaker being chased after by someone known as the Collector. Seeking refuge, Breaker asks a drunk for help who takes him to a boarding house. After learning of a car theft, the people living there call the sheriff, and the Collector uses this opportunity to convince them that Breaker is a dangerous thief. The sheriff, however, arrests both Breaker and the Collector right before the latter punches through his skull, killing him, and sending Breaker off on the run once again. It seems like the Collector is in pursuit of an artifact that Breaker possesses, and in order to get to it, he draws up his own blood on the sand to create an army that would chase after Breaker. Not ready to give in so easily, Breaker uses the artifact itself to draw blood and marks doors and windows to keep the Collector's creatures out. The other residents of the boarding house hide inside with Breaker as he tells them that they must survive the night. Finally, the townspeople surround those inside the church, demanding answers when Breaker informs them that what he holds is the last of the 7 keys God left behind when he was creating Earth. It can be used by demons to take control of the planet and was initially filled with the blood of Christ during his crucifixion.
What's that smell?
Since then, every holder fills it with their blood before passing it on to the next. While Breaker gets busy narrating the story, the Collector uses this time to possess various people inside the church to launch an attack from within, where Breaker gets wounded badly. He chooses one of the residents named Geraldine as his successor and hands her the keys which give her visions of the past and stamps her with a 7-star tattoo. She has a face-off with the Collector where she defeats him and collects Breaker's blood before getting on a bus leaving town. On the way, she encounters a man dressed similar to the Collector and realises that he is the next Collector in line, just like Geraldine is the next protector of the Relic in line. The Collector appears fully human, whereas the demons he releases resemble skeletal zombies with frail hair and glowing eyes. Their lifeless bodies were only made to follow orders.
This is all the time we had for today's episode. We hope you guys liked it. It would be awesome if you guys can take some time to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to tell us which topic you want us to cover in the comment section. Have a fantastic day ahead and stay safe.
Everything's gonna be cool, man. Everything's gonna be...